The first time I heard someone say the Amish could store food for decades without a fridge, I thought they were joking. I mean, 20 years? How could that be possible? But then Eli invited me to his farm. "Come see for yourself," he said with a grin. And a week later, there I was, stepping out of his buggy into a world that felt like it was frozen in time. The farm was quiet, just the sounds of chickens scratching in the dirt and a faint breeze through the trees. Eli's mom waved from the porch as we walked toward the barn. "We'll start with the basics," Eli said. "Then I'll show you the real secrets." Inside the barn, Eli pointed to shelves lined with jars. I'd seen canning before, but these jars weren't the bright colors of fresh produce. Instead, they were filled with beans, grains, and something that looked like chunks of meat. "This is pressure canned," Eli explained. "We seal it up so no air gets in. Meat like this will last several years if it's stored right." He pulled a jar of beef off the shelf and handed it to me. "We do it every summer when we butcher. Keeps us fed even if times get hard." The idea of eating meat that was older than some kids I knew made me hesitate, but Eli's confidence was clear. "We've been doing it this way for generations. It works." Next, Eli took me to the root cellar. This one was different from the one I'd seen before, bigger, deeper, and cooler. "This is where we store food that doesn't need much processing," he said. The walls were lined with crates of potatoes, onions, carrots, and apples. But the centerpiece was a massive barrel in the corner. "That's sauerkraut," Eli said. "Fermented cabbage. It can last for years if you keep it covered and cool." He lifted the lid and the sharp, tangy smell hit me instantly. "The salt draws out the water and creates a brine," he explained. "No air means no mold. We've eaten kraut that was a couple of years old, easy." From there we went to the smokehouse. It was dark and smelled like the richest barbecue you've ever had. Hams, sausages, and slabs of bacon hung from the ceiling, their surfaces shiny and dark. "The smoke keeps bugs and bacteria away," Eli said. "And the salt preserves it. Some of this bacon has been hanging here for months, maybe a year." He handed me a slice to try. It was chewy and salty, with a deep, smoky flavor that was unlike anything I'd ever tasted. "We don't need refrigeration," Eli said, "just time and patience." The last stop was the grain room. Large metal bins held wheat, corn, and oats, all carefully sealed. "We use oxygen absorbers and keep it dry," Eli said. "Grain can last 10, even 20 years this way. You just have to keep the pests out." He showed me how they used diatomaceous earth, a fine powder to keep bugs from ruining the food. "It's natural and it works." Back in the kitchen, Eli's mom was making dinner. She handed me a slice of bread slathered with butter and a jar of jam. "That jam's a couple of years old," she said. I took a bite. It was sweet, tangy, and tasted like it had been made yesterday. Over dinner, I asked Eli how someone like me could start using these methods. He thought for a moment, then said, "Start small. Try canning some meat or making sauerkraut. Get a few airtight bins for grains. You don't need to do everything at once. Just learn a little at a time." I've thought a lot about that day since. In a world where most people rely on freezers and grocery stores, the Amish have found ways to make food last for years, sometimes decades in the case of grains. It's not magic, just hard work, knowledge, and respect for the old ways. And as I've started canning my own vegetables and storing grains in my pantry, I've realized something. These methods aren't just for the Amish. They're for anyone who wants to be a little more prepared, a little more self-sufficient. Maybe the world doesn't need to change overnight. But if more of us learned how to store food like Eli's family, maybe we'd waste less, worry less, and appreciate what we have a little more. And that feels like a good place to start.